Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Mary Mays. I'm actually recording this video. I was looking at possibly going live, but running into a few little technological issues. So we're just going to go ahead and do a rough, quick video, and I'm going to post this really soon after I record. That way all the information is up to date. So if you see any kind of like background controls, I'm on a system called OBS, and this is what it looks like a little bit, when I'm switching over, so you can see what I'm sharing on my screen. And if anything is blocked, I'm very sorry. But I think we should be good in terms of what I'm trying to show you with Milton. So this was Milton yesterday. This is microwave satellite imagery, and that kind of showed you inside the storm. And you can see that the storm overnight underwent something called eye wall replacement. So it was a category 5 yesterday. And when we woke up this morning, it was a category 4. Category is important, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Either way, this is still an incredibly strong storm. And eye wall replacements are just something that happens with these storms. It's, kind of part of their evolution, their lifespan. So it kind of falls apart a little bit. And, its interactions with the Yucatan Peninsula had something to do with that as well. But notice it's starting to look a little bit more together. This is the current imagery. And this is actually from a website called Tropical Tidbits, which I really enjoy. And this is a great website. Levy, who runs it, does excellent, really technical discussions. I always watch them when they come out on YouTube. So if you are a weather nerd and you don't know about this website, it's great to go to. But you can see that right here in the eye, it's getting smaller, it's getting more well-defined. That is an indication that the storm is starting to strengthen again, and that's expected. There's a very real possibility that it becomes a category 5 again today, but as it tracks closer to Florida, it's going to run into some wind shear. And that is going to weaken the storm a little bit. Still going to be a major category 3 storm, at least that's what we're expecting when it makes landfall, and that's still going to be catastrophic. And actually, in this case, when you go from a category 4 or a category 5 storm and it weakens to a category 3, it can actually make certain aspects of the storm worse because the wind field widens and you get wind over a larger extent. So, the winds at the very core of the system might not be as strong as they were when the storm was a category 4 or 5, but you get hurricane force winds over a larger area. And you also get those winds expand, the storm expand, and that can actually push more water inland, and that can make things worse for storm surge. So there's a lot going on with this system. I know a lot of folks might think, oh, well, it's expected to weaken a little bit before it makes landfall. That's really not going to keep it from being catastrophic. In fact, that might worsen things. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but that's what we're working with. So you can see it's starting to strengthen again. Yesterday, it was a category 5 with winds of 180 miles per hour. And the pressure with this got down to 897 millibars. And that makes it, I think, the 5th strongest Atlantic hurricane in terms of pressure on record and the 2nd strongest in the Gulf, which is just wild to see. Now, looking at the tracks, there's a lot of models. You're probably seeing them. And I just really want to focus on the impacts, not necessarily, the nitty gritty of where this is going to make landfall, because anywhere it makes landfall, the west coast of Florida, especially from the Tampa Bay area down to Fort Myers, even down into Naples, you're going to feel big impacts. So it really doesn't matter necessarily the exact location of landfall, because as of right now, consensus is showing this heading into the Tampa Bay area. Any wobbles can make it a little better or a little worse for Tampa and other communities, but everyone's going to feel the impacts, and it is better to prepare for the worst case scenario in your area. So if you have been told to evacuate, get out. You're running out of time. So this model, this is the HAFS-A model, has it strengthening. Not quite as strong as it was yesterday, but it does have it strengthening. And then it has it weakening to about a category 3 as it makes landfall. And this model takes it right into Tampa Bay. And a lot of models have been doing that. Now, if it was maybe a little bit further south, that might be better for Tampa Bay. However, it would make it worse for Port Charlotte. And, even if it goes into Tampa Bay, it's still going to be really bad in Port Charlotte. Down into Fort Myers, you're still going to have flooding. And, Tampa Bay, even if it goes a little further south, you're still going to get some flooding with this. And you're still going to have the wind and the rain. So it's going to be a disaster no matter what. And Tampa Bay, really prone to hurricanes because you haven't had a direct landfall in 100 years. And this model, what they've been showing is, a direct landfall or even the storm going just slightly north of the Bay Area means you would get the worst of the storm surge. That's what you need to prepare for. Prepare for the worst. And I know that there is this psychological thing that people do, and we're all guilty of it, where you see a favorable forecast and that's what sticks in your head. I think a lot of people just tend to be optimistic, but with storms like this, being optimistic can put you in a lot of danger. So prepare for the worst. If you're in zones A, B, and C in the Tampa Bay area, you've already been told to evacuate. I hope you're out of there. Even just going to a shelter inland a few miles away could save your life. So that's what you need to know about, kind of landfall. Our models have been kind of focusing on the Tampa Bay region. That's where the National Hurricane Center has it going through with that center line. It could go a little north, it could go a little south. Either way, it's going to be catastrophic for a lot of folks and along the west coast of Florida. And, really anywhere from Tampa Bay to Northport to Fort Myers, even down to Naples, you're going to feel that big storm surge, especially if this system weakens down into a Category 3 and you get that big wind field. This is going to flood you. It's going to flood downtown Fort Myers. And I mentioned Fort Myers a lot because I lived there for 3 years. It's going to flood portions of Tampa Bay that just recently flooded with Helene. And downtown Fort Myers just had flooding. You're going to get the flooding in Sanibel up through the Cape Hayes Peninsula into the Northport area. Even Naples could see some flooding with this. So it is going to be a big deal. And it's still a big deal as it heads inland. Still a Category 2 hurricane as it moves just south of Orlando. So the Orlando metro area, that's a big area. You're going to have, really wide range of power outages. And I mentioned the wind field getting bigger when a storm weakens from a Category 4 or 5 down to a 3. So you get that expansion of these winds. That also increases power outages across the state because you got more wind further out from the center of the storm. So, you might focus on saying, hey, Category 3 is better than a Category 5. Not necessarily. It actually means you could see impacts further out because of how this is evolving with the wind field. And then it moves out into the Atlantic, and it's going to produce some storm surge along the east coast of Florida, even into southeast Georgia, but it's not going to get stronger again as it heads to Bermuda. Let's actually look at the National Hurricane Center website. So there's a lot of folks on the internet talking all kinds of crazy stuff. Go to nhc.noaa.gov for the latest information. It's the easiest way to know what's going on. And you can start out by looking at the cone. So M means major hurricane. And at these 2 points, 7 a.m. Wednesday is still a Category 4. By 7 p.m., as it gets closer to landfall, that's when it's expected to be a Category 3, so at landfall. Center of the cone is basically right through Tampa Bay, but it could go north, it could go south. Still well within the realm of possibility at this point. And what we're going to see is, the cone getting a little bit smaller by tomorrow, but by that point, your preparations need to be done because by tomorrow, we're already going to start really experiencing that flooding, and we're going to start to see those winds picking up, and it would be really difficult to get anything done. So have your preparations done by tonight. So tomorrow morning, it's a Category 4. You're starting to see that water push in. Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, it's up on us. And then overnight Wednesday, probably around midnight, maybe early Thursday, maybe late Wednesday, that's when landfall is expected. So on top of all of this, on top of the surge, on top of the hurricane force winds, and the ridiculous amounts of inland rainfall that could cause flooding, freshwater flooding, So you've got storm surge, which is salt water, and then you got freshwater flooding. It's happening at night. So it's going to be a long night for a lot of folks. And I am praying for you and I am thinking about you. But we've got the system moving in still as a hurricane. So even a category 2 as it moves over the Florida Peninsula across the East Coast, even maintaining category 1 status on Thursday as it's offshore. It is not going to re-strengthen though. It's expected to kind of become a remnant as it heads toward Bermuda. Bermuda might get a little bit of this action, but not expected to become a hurricane again. So that is the track. I hope I'm making sense. You know, you just need to evacuate if you've been told to evacuate. We're going to take a closer look actually at evacuations in just a minute. The key messages, this is always something great to read because it talks about the threats, and we've gone through it, you know, hurricane force winds, life-threatening storm surge. If you're in a mobile home, you need to be evacuated. If you're in an area along the coast, especially in the Tampa Bay area where we could see anywhere from Inglewood all the way up through Tampa Bay, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. That is so scary. And then, you know, even beyond that, up through, you know, the Suwannee River, which just had a ton of surge from Helene. And then you go down from Inglewood to Bonita Beach. And this is the Fort Myers area. This includes Sanibel. This includes Captiva. And also parts of Cape Coral. Fort Myers, which is right there along the Caloosahatchee. You're going to be underwater, 6 to 10 feet of storm surge. And then, you know, from Bonita down to Chokoloskee, 4 to 7 feet. And then 3 to 5 feet from Chokoloskee down to Flamingo. So you'll probably get some flooding in Naples, possibly even down to Marco Island. That's a big deal. And then you go to, you know, spots like Jacksonville, St. Johns River, which is quite prone. You got 2 to 4 feet of surge. You know, on the East Coast, even, you know, Tybee Island up to Edisto, down through Jekyll Island, Port Canaveral, 2 to 4 feet. You know, that's still flooding. That can still cover roadways, cause a lot of issues. The biggest impacts, of course, are on the West Coast, but East Coast, make sure you're paying attention as well because you're going to get some wind and rain, especially along the I-4 region. So that is the storm surge discussion. You run from the water, hide from the wind. If you've been told to evacuate, run from the water, please. Flash flooding. We've got a high risk here in Orlando, which had some pretty bad flooding actually with Hurricane Ian, if you remember that, down through Tampa Bay, really central Florida. You know, spots like Gainesville are going to see flooding, even down into, you know, even South Florida could see some flooding with this, and North Florida too, even into Jacksonville. So this is really impacting the entire peninsula in one way or another. And in terms of how much rainfall, we're going to see up to about 16 inches. So a foot or more of rain inland, that is plenty to flood you. So please take this seriously, even if you're inland. You are safer inland because you're out of the range of storm surge, but you're still dealing with wind that's going to cause days of power outages, if not weeks, and you're still dealing with that potential for inland flooding. So these are the things you got to watch out for. Another map I like to look at is storm surge inundation. And this, you know, there's this kind of guidelines. The red is 9 feet or more above ground. So there's Tampa Bay, and you see a lot, St. Pete. And unfortunately, you know, things like the Dolly Museum are going to get, you know, flood waters moving in, St. Pete Beach. And a lot of Tampa Bay is very vulnerable to storm surge flooding. So, you know, the orange here is 6 feet or more. Yellow is 3 feet or more. You go down the coast, you can see all these places that I love, you know, Sarasota, all these wonderful spots. Longboat Key. I love Longboat Key. You keep going down and you just see all these spots that are so prone. Red, once again, 9 feet or above. You go down through Venice, and then we get into, you know, the Cape Pays Peninsula. You get into the Port Charlotte area, and you see lots of 9 feet here, you know, 6 to 9 feet. And this isn't a guarantee, but it's certainly a possibility. Pine Island, once again, Bokeelia, parts of Cape Coral will likely see 3 feet, even up to 6 feet of water. I have friends in the Cape Coral area. A lot of these areas have been told to evacuate. Fort Myers Beach, 6 feet or more is going to be possible. This is Sanibel. And then we keep going down to Bonita Springs here, and you can see the water goes and it surges inland along these waterways. So it's not just the beach, it is, inlets, rivers, go down into Naples, and we're looking at, 3 feet, even down into Marco Island, likely to see some surge, could see some flooding there along the beaches and even a little further inland. So this is a great map to look at. I think that this map is the most important to look at, kind of talking about worst case scenario, but the other one helps too. Let's talk a little bit more about where to go if you need information. And one of the best spots is floridadisaster.org. And you just go to Milton, of course, you go to updates, you got press releases, orders, evacuation assistance. So one of the first things you need to know is, do I need to evacuate? And you can see here that this tells you, and it tells you when new evacuation notices have been put into place. So Charlotte County, if you're an A and B, you got to get out. And you can see more information to these specific areas. Let's go down to Pinellas. That's one county where there's a lot of evacuation zones A, B, and C. So you need to get out now if you haven't already. Shelters, if you need to know where shelters are, you can find them here. And, there's sandbag usage. Know your home, know your zone. Here's your zone maps. This is invaluable information if you just don't know it yet. So let's take a look at the Tampa Bay area. In red here, that's Zone A. You've been evacuated. Zone A, B. Zone B, which is in orange. You got BC, which is also in orange. Zone C is evacuated as well. So that's a lot of people along the coast here in Tampa Bay. And, this is looking like it could be the big one for Tampa, and that is absolutely terrifying. So the National Hurricane Center's maps don't show it shows, whether it's a major hurricane, but it doesn't show the category. So if you were wondering about the category, I'm just going to show you this here. This is Mariel Ruiz, who actually works in Dallas WFAA, but I saw this track, and since I know her, she's great. Give her a follow. But this kind of shows you the timeline and the categories, and it shows just how strong this storm is still going to be when it moves through Central Florida, just south of Orlando, as a Category 2. Another thing I wanted to show you is the astronauts in the International Space Station have had incredible views of just how big and powerful this storm is. This is from Matthew Dominic. He is up there on the ISS, and what an experience to get to see that. So I think I've covered pretty much everything. This is going to be just a catastrophic storm for a lot of folks, and I'm thinking about you. I'm hoping for the best, praying, and I hope I can help you at least prepare a little bit. You need to have everything done by tonight, whether you're staying. If you're going, you need to be on the road now. But if you're staying, get those preparations done by tonight. And I'm going to be thinking about you, and I'll keep providing updates. So thank you for watching this video, and please take care.